One. Welcome to the Animus podcast. I'm here with Bonray, Teo of Atonement, and Mod of the SA Discord. You can introduce yourself.
That's me. I'm Bonray. I'm waving, but you can't see it.
I'm Animus. I've been here since the season 1 of Ultimate, which is like 2019, like end of 2019, I think. So I've been playing for about 4 years. I kind of want to do this podcast to get more involved with San Antonio Smash, and hopefully the majority of Texas. I haven't been here as long as others like Austin and Geo since they've been here since Smash 4, but with all the newer players joining in, I feel like I am like an adult.
And I have also been here since season 1. Fun trivia, my first tournament was LFG, and my first person I ever played against was Johnny Megafox. I think that was my first game. And then luckily my job was in between where most of the tournaments are and my house, so I just basically went to everything when I first started, and it's only recently that I haven't been entering as much.
That's good, yeah. So now we're starting off with the new season. Well, currently we're in the off season, which is pretty nice, but new season starting off. Do you have any expectations or any investments into any of the new players?
For the most part, I actually usually am invested in everyone who, whatchamacallit, it seems like they're putting in the work to become, I guess, highly ranked. I do think that kind of doesn't super matter. It's kind of like your PR or not, but I am invested in people's just general progress. As far as specific people, it's kind of hard to say. So something we've kind of seen, if you look at a top-down level comparing the previous seasons to the current season, is people kind of naturally bubbling up just because they've been here longer than newer people who are trickling in. So one of the best ways, this is a spoiler, to improve your rank is just for more new people to join, because usually you will perform better than those people. So it is a little hard to track people's kind of, I guess, actual improvement, because if you're looking at ELO, lower ranked people will push people who have more experience upward. And we kind of see that now. Some people who, at least to me, until recently were considered new or who became more active, have slowly been creeping upward in the ranks, just because, again, they're kind of dominating a lot of the newer people. But they are pretty competitive with each other. As far as people I specifically root for, though, I am a pretty big Roos stan. I think he has a good attitude towards the game, and he's definitely steadily progressed. I am also a Conti stan for, I think I met him either in Season 2 or towards the end of Season 1. I've been a Conti stan for a while. Also probably G-Meister a bit. We don't know each other super well, but I am invested in their progress. And then I guess as far as someone who's a bit older, probably Bodyguard too. He's pretty neat.
That's good. And you made a good point on boosting your ELO with all the newer players. Because like a lot of newer players are going to come in and they're going to want to make PR right away. That's usually the first goal and their first mistake, IMO, when someone new gets into a competitive scene. So they'll usually like go to all the tournaments and they'll get enough ELO points by going to them, making, third, fourth, and then they'll go to like Otaku. And then the people who are already PR are going to beat them and then just get more ELO points because that's just how the ELO system works.
Yeah, exactly. I think, there's a lot of things that go into ELO. I think it's not really a super useful system for a lot of people. like I said, it's kind of like your PR or you're not. And outside of the people who are in the top few slots, to be honest, a lot of players, as far as skill goes, they're pretty competitive with each other. Meaning, in practice, they all could simultaneously beat or lose, or beat someone or lose to someone within like I would say 10 or 15 ranks of them. To be honest, something that I always say is that ELO in Smash or anything really is not like an anime power level. You are not necessarily significantly better than people you're more highly ranked than, because there's just a lot more things that go into being good rather than just kind of like having a high ELO. It's honestly pretty easy to manipulate the system by just going to select tournaments or only fighting against certain people. So
That's actually extremely true because I was actually looking at the elo for this season, right? I guess for last season technically, but a good example of this would be Haru. I'm not trying to specifically call him out, but this is a really good example of how the elo's kind of not really fair. He's been to two tournaments and he's beaten Rays about four times. So that boosts his elo so high to where he is number seven on the elo system, even though someone like Win, Sewer Person, uh, our list have gone to more tournaments, but because they lost to Rays is actually something I think all of them have lost to. Their elo went down, right? It's not an accurate representation, like you said. Uh, so it kind of goes to show that elo. It's not that it doesn't matter. It does help out with seeding and such, but it's not
it's
as
a
big as people make it out to be.
yeah, it's a general idea. It's kind of like the way I see ELO is it's kind of like a cloud where you can beat people within a certain range of you. Like you're in the center of the cloud, and then all of the people surrounding you make up the rest of it. Actually, that was a bad metaphor. I was kind of trying to compare it to like what an electron cloud works like, but that's not appropriate for Smash, and also that's probably a little too nerdy. But basically, there's just a certain range of people lower and higher than you that you can probably beat. And again, most of these people or players are, to be honest, like kind of interchangeable in skill. There's not that much of a large gap in skill. It's really more of an issue of people just having issues with individual matchups, in my opinion.
That's true. Just because there are, like you said, there are people who will just lose to specific matchups, whether because that's a bad matchup or mentally they're just not ready to deal with a matchup they've constantly lost. And I kind of understood what you meant by being inside a cloud because you kind of have this range of where you can really, like, you can kind of beat the 5 to 10 people above you, and you can beat the 5 10 people below you, and they can beat you too, right? It's not like it's a
Yeah,
like a
exactly. That
definitive I'm better than this person kind of thing.
yeah,
Uh,
it's not like a ladder. It's more like it's more fuzzy than that. It's just there's certain people kind of near you that you can win or lose to.
exactly, yeah.
Um, and then even then, there's just a lot of inherent volatility to it. It's very easy to have your ELO inflated or destroyed very quickly
Yeah.
by just losing to specific people.
I
Um,
got my elo destroyed. You can kind of see the big drop if you look at it. I think I lost to Cosmics and TPK, and since they only entered like twice and went like 1-2 or 0-2, the elo system's like you lost to like the 200th the best player in SA, so you're gonna plummet, which isn't like it's not like those two players are bad anyways, but
mhm.
because they weren't already adjusted to the current elo range, it messes up with whoever they beat.
Yeah, exactly. Um, whatchamacallit? But I mean, I guess I could go over some examples too of kind of the stuff I'm talking about. So, um, I like I said before, having a higher ELO doesn't inherently mean you're better than other people, but something also that new people tend to do is when you're new, people aren't quite adjusted to you, and if you have certain types of play styles, I won't say it will artificially inflate your ELO, but it will make you'll plateau very quickly, if that makes sense. Like you'll have a very good starting high place, but you will start having people progressively adapt to you a lot more. I think probably one of the biggest examples of that is honestly flutes, I think, where flutes for most of, I believe the season before this one was in HM or PR contention because he was just going to everything, which is both a blessing and a curse. If you're trying to get PR, if you go to too many things, you have more chances to lose, which is unfortunately just kind of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays me Sword Fighter, which is a zoner character, and there's nothing wrong with that. But zoners, I think, it just takes a bit of time to get used to playing those types of matchups, so they're kind of more immediately effective against a lot of players. But the more experience you get, especially if you're going to something every week, you're basically teaching people those matchups. And to be frank, if people get annoyed playing against zoners, they will, if they are passionate about the game, they will research that matchup and figure out how to start winning that. Because it is
Yeah,
very, very irritating losing to a zoner for a lot of people.
there are a
Um,
lot of resources for that kind of stuff, especially because the Sword Fighter's kind of is like a very big Wi-Fi character. It's one of those characters that you go on Wi-Fi, and because it's a zoner, right? Most zoners are on Wi-Fi, and you can kind of understand that matchup relatively well. And then even if they don't, like top 10 are good for a reason. Like they're there because they know how to adapt. It might take them longer than a couple of sets, but you're right on the plateauing part. People are eventually going to figure you out,
mhm.
and once you no longer have that advantage of getting your confirms or your setups for free, uh, it gets very difficult to start improving from there.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean anyone is getting better or worse. It's just kind of a natural part of people playing the game regularly, to be honest. Again, when you play constantly every week, you are basically teaching people a matchup. So you have to be progressively learning more and more things to do to kind of outpace them, or just have a lot of discipline to punish their mistakes more than they are able to punish yours.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole reason I brought that up is basically, again, ELO isn't a super useful indicator of kind of like where you actually are. There are like interpersonal factors or just kind of local meta factors, like people having to learn a matchup that um, influence. And I guess the second example I'll give before we kind of move on is before most of the new people or the newer people who joined in the past 2, maybe 3 seasons don't know this. We used to basically have an infestation of Palatinas in the
Mm-hmm.
scene.
I remember
Um,
that.
and then that slowly kind of withered out, essentially because people just learned the Palatina matchup over time, and then also played DLC characters where they can either contend with her or just flat out overpower her sometimes in neutral. And so she just kind of progressively started falling out of favor. But at that point in time, basically a good way, if you wanted to inflate your ELO easily, was just basically play Palu because you would just saw through half of SA automatically. But those people kind of petered off after a point in time because people got that matchup knowledge, or they started playing characters that can swing back at her pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard Ray's and I talk about that, and I think Tiramisu and Rayo was there. But we're basically talking about that all the Palu players, right, that picked up Palu for the sole reason of not specifically to inflate their elo, but they knew the reason they were playing Palu was because they could avoid cheese and that they would win more, so they would get more practice.
Yeah, exactly.
But once Palu started being figured out, because there were so many, you're going to learn the matchup eventually with how many Palus we had. Uh, they kind of either dropped Palu or stopped playing the game. Like we had people drop Palu and then picked up Rob, or drop Palu and then pick up Aegis. No, uh,
Y-
and that's kind
yeah
of how it is.
Exactly. And I think in the context of a local, Palu is like fine as a character. I think there's something to be said that as a high level character, she just doesn't have enough like juice compared to a lot of the DLC and other high and top tiers. But in terms of a local, she's fine. Like if you
Oh
really
yeah,
are dedicated to playing Palu,
I mean like
and you really want to actively practice, you can definitely chew through most of SA still. It's just kind of like when people learn a matchup, they can actually fight back, and that's when people are at a point where they can fight back against your character. That is basically kind of how I personally determine if you're good or not, is if you can deal with people being able to deal with you.
yeah, and that kind of also talks about the whole plateauing part too, right? Because that's kind of how Palu players they got a good jump start and then they kind of plateaued once people started figuring them out. And as far as like as a character to play locally or even on a state level, uh, Palu's still like a very good character. At worst, people are gonna know the matchup, but you can still be the better player. Because even now we have like Little Mac on the PR banner, not only by our list, but Raze was also on that PR banner before him, and even in Smash Four when he was even worse. And well, I think the first or second season of Ultimate, well, we had so many different characters. So as far as locally, you're right. Any character can work.
Yeah, yeah, especially one that is in the very least at a minimum high tier. But um,
But
let's
we
see.
can
I
move on to the
think
next topic of the off season.
okay, yeah,
Uh,
let's go for it.
because this off season, and I think you're the one that suggested a 2 week off season. Usually we have just 1 week.
Yeah, so if you don't know, initially how it worked is there was just a 1 week off season. Basically, at the end of the last week of the season, you would basically have, and I guess that was technically on a like usually a Sunday, or actually no, it might have been on Otaku. So like it basically ends on the last Otaku of a season, so that's a Thursday, at least for now, and then the Arcadian was the following Thursday. So you basically had 5 or 6 days of off season.
Yeah,
And I personally thought that it would be better to have two, in part because people probably need to rest a little bit. And then also, it gives people a chance to explore new characters and just do new things, or honestly, just like review their gameplay. Because if you're going to locals every day of a week, and even if you're like your only responsibility is like just going to school, it's just kind of hard to actually fit in time for meaningful VOD review if that's something you care about, or even just meaningful labbing. Just because it's like you already have to be ready for the next day, like instantly.
yeah. I do agree with the whole kind of having little time to prepare for the next season in the sense because I think we did have a week. I think it was LFG would be like the first like main like start of the new season.
Hmm.
Uh, but a week is not really enough. And from my experience, I actually would always burn out during off season because my brain would be like, all right, now I can practice really hard and try new things. And then I do that, and then the new season starts, especially after the Arcadians, and now I'm like, well, I don't really want to play anymore because I either got my feelings hurt or I played so much during the off season for Arcadians that I'm no longer like I'm burned out. You know, you can't stop. You can't play through burnout, or else it'll get worse.
Yeah, because I think something that happens to a lot of people is that if they are in that category where they're kind of scraping towards maybe being HM, like either they're top 20 ELO or near that, and they're in contention for that. When they realize they're not going to be PR, a lot of times what they'll do is start rage playing more. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
they'll just start going to even more stuff during the off season, um, and then they will get their feelings hurt if they don't do as well as they want because they're like basically they're using the off season to prove to themselves that they were good enough to be PR or whatever. And that's a very good way to hurt your own feelings because you already have all that energy from constantly entering locals beforehand for the actual season that just ended. And now you're just basically like hitting on the gas pedal even more when you're already basically burnt out trying to
Yeah,
prove something. And I think that's not good for people.
yeah, it's really bad, especially with the mentality a lot of people have with not only rage playing and rage practicing, but like I don't know if it's entitlement. I will probably just say it's entitlement, where people are like, well, I deserve to win because I try harder or I practice more, and it's just a whole circle of getting your feelings hurt about where you placed, how you did, and it's just not fun, especially since you're trying to prove something that really isn't there to prove, especially on an off season.
Yeah, exactly. I recommend people interact with the off season basically by either taking a break, because taking a break is good, and then just doing, practicing at home or doing friendlies or whatever, or maybe just entering one or two locals instead of like literally all of them.
Yeah,
Um, or alternatively, doing things that you can't normally do during the season, like practice a new character so you don't have to worry about your ELO if that's something you care about, or, just practice something new in a high stakes environment where I guess the stakes are basically just making money or not, but without having to worry about like your ranking being messed with because, you were trying to introduce a new tech and then it made you SD or something, and now you lost to someone who is ranked like 20 places lower than you and it destroys your ELO for a week or two.
yeah, that's actually a really good point about trying something new. I think wins. I like wins a lot in this situation because he will. I've seen him drop Sonic and try playing Peach even during like when it mattered. Uh, and I've seen him even now like on this off season.
Hmm.
Not this last shenanigans, but the one before that where he was playing Diddy Kong.
Yeah.
There was a big improvement between the two off season shenanigans that he attended, uh, which you wouldn't really get off of just a one off season tournament or one off season week in general to improve that much. Uh, and it is nice just to go to a tournament, enjoy it, and not stress. It also helps not newer players but older players come back. I don't think we had any old heads come back to try out the game during the off season,
Yeah,
but
the first time we implemented it, I actually went out of my way to invite some older players, and a few did.
mm,
I think Whiteout went to one thing, and I know Zeta went to one thing, and Gabba didn't enter, but he hung out. Um, and then I'm trying to think of anyone else who also went, but I was interested in seeing if I could get older people in because that's kind of an issue. I guess that we haven't talked about is that um, kind of like some of the older players who have taken a break kind of don't want to start playing again, in part because everyone is really really hungry to prove themselves, and
mm-hmm.
so beating like someone who's out of practice who was formerly PR is like obviously a major serotonin boost if you're struggling to, or not even struggling, just you're scraping and trying to get into PR yourself. You're like, oh, well, I can beat this person who's previously PR. That means I'm doing better. But um, that also is something that is kind of annoying to deal with, honestly, where it's like, okay, well, I can't even like get back into shape at this game without people kind of losing their minds over trying to prove that they're improving.
That is such
Um,
a that's extremely true. Sorry to interrupt there, but uh, I live with Riley, and she has that's like literally the exact same reasoning that she uses for why she didn't come earlier during like when Elo mattered, right? I think she went to two tournaments just because I asked her to, uh, but she just didn't want to come because to have to play against not only DLC 2 but people who will like camp the ever living hell out of you just to get a win while you are either practicing with friends who aren't even trying to prove anything, they're just having fun, or like you're in the training lab, you're not really prepared to deal with people who are like starving to get a win. But that's very true. Who else did I talk to about that? I think it was Whiteout. I think I brought it up to Whiteout. I don't think it was. I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was definitely an old head who was kind of complaining about if they lose, it's this big deal of like, I basically am PR level because I beat you, because you used to be PR. And it's
Yeah.
like, nobody wants to deal with that because they don't want to be emotionally invested into Smash like that. They just want to go there and play and enter and have fun. But it's hard to have fun when you know if you lose, you're gonna go on Twitter and you're gonna get an at of like, I beat this person. I'm so great.
Yeah, I think I honestly I don't know if this is a generational difference or not, but it is kind of an issue. I think a theme in a lot of the newer players, and it might honestly just be the age difference showing, is that they honestly are like so hungry for like being PR or wanting to be like well regarded within the community through their gameplay. Well, actually, not even their gameplay, just by winning. Um, is that they kind of just like lose their minds over like just kind of minor stuff. Like this isn't necessarily like mean to do, but whenever like a PR player loses to someone who's non-PR, like clockwork, someone in the Discord will be like, "Yo, X beat like Y PR player," and they don't understand that that's like kind of like annoying,
Yeah, and that's
honestly.
really that's really fucking ignorant too, because it's like nobody wants to deal with that after they lost, and that's like the last thing they want is they want to go to the Discord and they just want to enjoy whatever's going on.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of times it's even in situations where it's like actually I talked to Gallon about this. He like played Bayonetta, who he like very visibly does not main. That is not either of the characters he mained during like the end of a season, and someone just lost their mind and popped off on him because he was PR at the time and they just were having the best time of their life because they got a PR win.
Oh my
And
god.
it just that's very I don't I really want to impress on people that really alienates other players really bad, like um
Yeah.
because what it does is it makes it so that for one, people are like, damn, I can't even like have fun playing this game because someone is just gonna start like
Like they're
twerking and doing
ready.
backflips
uh
because I just decided not to try super hard for once. And it makes it so that there's just like a lot of pressure not to lose, so you don't have to deal with people being rude to you. And I know people will think in their head, well, it's not being rude, I'm just happy about, my victory, but it's like it's
but
the
like
way you're showing it.
yeah, cuz like you said, people will like twerk like right in front of your face as you just beat them. I actually had this, right? So uh it hurt my feelings really bad. So it was at a taku, and this is what the time where I'm like, I'm going to destroy my hands, and I'm going to do the best I can because I'm tired of getting worried about my feelings getting hurt. And I had two laggy like monitors and like a switch adapter, and I got popped off on someone who I usually beat, and I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll just get it in losers. And then when I lost in losers, not only did I get popped off once, but after they finished popping off, they like went to shake my hand, and then like did a psych moment, hit the table with their fist, and then popped off harder. And I'm like,
Oh no.
I if it was not for a retail experience, I would have been like I was smiling. I was smiling like, haha, you did a great job, right? As I'm like ready to go home, and I have to wait for rally to finish. But like they were so ignorant because after they finished popping off twice on me, they're like, "Wow, you did really good. You're a really good player," and I'm like, I, it's actually just really. I don't think they're trying to be mean, and no one really is. It's just,
it's just kind of inconsiderate.
yeah, I don't
And
know.
a little immature. Like it would be different if like I don't know how to explain it because like almost every time that stuff like that happens, it's like it's not even like for good gameplay. It's like this person SD'd
Yeah,
blatantly, and then you're like, yes, I got that
yeah,
win. It's like that's like it would be different if you were like neutraling out of your mind, getting these smooth ass confirms,
yeah. Like
and
if you
like
were visibly improving, or like you got the combo that you've been labbing out, and it's really hard to get.
yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, actually,
But yeah, it just makes it so that a lot of the way the newer people act, it alienates the older people, and you can kind of see that. There's definitely, I wouldn't even call them cliques, but there's a very strong divide between the older players and the newer players interacting with each other. Because of how they act. Like it's just like there's these people are like they really have something to prove, and it is very off-putting sometimes, honestly, with how
yeah,
it makes them act.
that definitely is extremely true, and we get to interact with the old heads a lot more. Just because we were kind of the newer generation to like them, right? And then we have this
Hmm.
new generation to us. So we're kind of in the middle of all this. So we get to see both sides pretty. And it's a little sad seeing both sides because it really is a pretty big thing. Like, I think if people were a lot more accepting and kinder or more considerate, that would bring in more people.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't think the culture is toxic. It's just kind of annoying, and that that subtly
Yeah.
has pushed some people away. Like I think San Antonio has a very mild scene as far as like how people act. It definitely is not like super toxic, and we don't have that many people who are like super problematic where it's just like, what is this person going to do this week that is going to cause drama? It's just kind of more like people
Yeah.
being a little inconsiderate or just annoying.
I don't know if you saw the drama. I think it was either Houston or Dallas. Uh, but there was a Shake player who beat a Steve Ricazia player, and
Hmm.
not only did they pop off, but they were like, "You are an awful player. You don't deserve to be here, and the fact that you ever beaten me is all a fluke, and you should just quit the game." And like
Ooh.
that was like they used
Hello.
very mean words, and they were very loud. So the entire venue was just like, "Huh?" Like, and it was like a lot of the DLC two players also are very young. So this was a literal child
Hmm.
who was just trying to have fun and was at worst ignorant. Uh, so it's nice that at worst in San Antonio people are just inconsiderate in terms of being mean, but like this kind of shit does actually bother people out of city too. Like to the point where if that happened, they made an apology post. It was taken down because it's like you can't apologize for that. Like you literally like made this kid cry because you were too upset about Steve beating your sheik.
XD.
Uh, which
I
also,
actually, oh, keep going.
like, you can go. I was gonna change it to something else, but
I was gonna say Ultimate honestly is a pretty evil game. I think one of the biggest issues is that um, everyone is so viable and good. The distance between high tiers and low tiers is not like as wide as in some games where like in a lot of fighting games low tier characters like are low tier because they just flat out don't work, or like they are purposely made bad, like
yeah,
to be kind of like a quirky fun character, to purposely like be like let me watch, like let me like style on you with this shitty character basically.
yeah, it's like the like beating up your little brother with that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
um And I think that makes inherently like almost not all matches, but it makes a lot of the game like very high intensity in terms of like now you have to know like a million matchups, and then also it is a little bit harder to skill gap people in matchups too, I would say, because of how effective so many characters are. And because it's just hard to keep track of all of these matchups where it's like, okay, you know this, let's say slight movement tech because Ultimate doesn't have that many, and it's like, well, it kind of doesn't matter because this character just has like three burst options that will just like if you're trying to microspace, they'll just blow right through it.
Yeah, or it's like we talked about this where like the not the advantage save, but like people have these burst options where they'll do it and you know they'll do it and you can't stop it. You can't even try to play. You can play around it and sometimes you'll win, but if they get it, you'll just die because that's just how Ultimate is.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just kind of have to preemptively assume they're always going to do it because at any point in time, if they do it, if it connects, you'll either die or be in such bad disadvantage that you are in danger of dying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh well, that's just how it is. I think that kind of behind the scenes sets people up to resent each other because it's very easy to feel
That
like
is
you are doing better than you're doing,
yes.
or that your loss came out of nowhere because there's just so much random stuff you have to know about different matchups and people's burst ranges.
You made a really good point on the it builds up resentment in people, right?
Hmm.
Because when I beat people in San Antonio, they get very mad. Like there are a few people who are actually like okay with it, but there are people who are like I deserve to win, and me losing to you because you were a lower seed. It was just luck, right? And you can kind of feel that. I don't know the word of animosity where people are kind of they have that energy of just like I can't believe this person fucking beat me. I just got cheesed. Uh,
Yeah, actually, you saying that people like resenting people because they lost to someone they felt they were better than because they were a higher seed than that person. That's also what I mean by like ELO is not a power level where people just like
mm-hmm.
this has happened a lot actually with the newer people where they just assume because they don't know someone that that person isn't good,
Yeah,
and then like someone who is like just legitimately very good at the game will just show up and like beat their ass and they'll be like, who the fuck is this? Or like they will act like this is like a new unknown person, and it's like if they just kind of were like, well, maybe I just don't know what's going on because I've only been here for like a few
yeah,
months, they would know that like, oh, this person was like number one in their region for like multiple years,
yeah. That
or this is like
happens.
quite literally one of like the top like 10 representatives of this character in the like on the planet.
Yeah, that happens a lot with like not only when people go out of city for the first time,
Hmm.
but like old heads, right? Like when Raleigh comes back and people lost to her, they're like, I just got cheesed by Pitt. Like that's not a good player, even though she was like the last one out of everybody in Ultimate to be like the last old head to leave, basically. Uh,
Yeah.
Same with like Rays is a really good example. When Rays came
Oh
back,
yeah, because when he took a break, yeah, and he came back.
he was getting going 0-2, and then like he there was one tournament actually, and he told me Animus, I'm tired of losing.
Well,
And then like
okay.
next week he comes in and he's making like top 8 at Otaku. He's beating Toast. He beats Skinny, and like before that he told me like I can never beat Skinny. I don't think I can beat Skinny with Terry. I don't think I can beat Skinny with Little Mac. I just can't do it. And then he does it after he told me that like I'm tired of losing, and people were mad. They were like, how the fuck can this random Terry player who's never been good ever in their life that I've noticed get so good? And I have to explain to these people, like, Raze is so much better than you, and
Yeah, like literally, he is probably one
like
of the like consistent. Like he's just he's good at this
he
game.
is, and like we're both ready to pop off and like see how like fucking smart he is, but people refuse to recognize that either because of the resentment of like, well, I was seated higher than you, and you took that from me. Like they feel like if you beat them and take their elo, like it's like they stole it from them. Like they never deserved it. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's just
Yeah, because I think people just really like they have opposing needs. They have a social need to like feel cool and important, but like a need as a competitor to get better at the game. And I think the desire to feel cool overpowers actually getting better a lot. And
yes,
so they just completely will not notice when someone is actually like legitimately good at this game. Something that always really, really vexes me is whenever like a older player comes back and like the new people cannot tell that that person is good, and to me it is so insanely blatant
no, yeah, actually,
like, that this person is actually like legitimately just like actually really good at the game. They're just rusty.
yeah, and like I think a good example of this was Nike, right?
Hmm.
I think Nike came for like one day for Pixel Portal, and I was like, holy shit, this neutral. Like most people are just mashing the same option over and over, but Nike literally was mixing things up and spacing so well that I'm like, where like nobody has the skill unless they also had played Brawl or Smash 4. But people will
Yeah.
refuse to acknowledge that either because they're like angry or like they just can't accept the fact that, or they just can't realize like what is actually good gameplay because they themselves aren't that good as they think they are.
Yeah, I think that also is a really big generational divide. I think if your first game was Ultimate, the way you think about Smash is like very fundamentally different than
Mm-hmm.
the previous games. Like, and then even then, if you like, depending on like what you think is cool in Smash, that also influences like what you think is good. So like a really, really good example is that a lot of people when they first start competing, they think Smash is just about comboing people, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't like they just don't understand neutral, or they like they don't get it, or they don't care to understand it. And so they just basically base if someone is good enough or good or not based off of like are they hitting people a lot,
Yeah. Well,
um or if they are getting like cool setups. Like something I used to say is, oh my god, I really hate when these people like like someone does some shit that gets popular on YouTube, because I have to sit back and watch like these people fish for the
oh
same like
yeah.
setup over and
Literally.
over again, and then like just have their eyes like shoot out of their body when they finally get it because they found out like this really wacky conversion.
Yeah, and it's like it's not even that great. It's just technically more optimal, but like the time they put into that, if they just practice neutral or like get better at their current combos that they're not always getting, like that kind of stuff reminds me of like League. For all the League players out there, there will be like a flavor of the month or flavor of the week character. There's like a video of like J4 top assassin is actually secretly broken, and then people will spam that game. I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna go to Rise, right? Where it's like, if you steal your jungler's camps, you can carry the game. And that happened for a month, and that was awful. Like, people will find things on YouTube and then just, like, absorb it and then try to replicate it and then post it on their Twitter or YouTube.
Yeah, it's actually the gamer version of clickbait, because like it's wholly premised on the idea that if you do this weird obscure thing you didn't think about before, you will just start winning. And
Yeah, that's such
it's
a
like
good way to
basically
put it.
like this is your chance to basically make $1 million for doing nothing, or this is learn one easy trick to become a millionaire. Basically,
That's
it's
so
just it
true.
is literally just gamer clickbait. Um, and it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how things are. But like I was saying, people just kind of process like what makes something or someone good at the game differently, as I mentioned before, I think it's more about like, can you hold your own when people know what is actually going on in a matchup? Like, can you do stuff back to people when they know what you are doing?
Yeah, and I think when a lot of people deal with that, right, they either give up, because I've had about three people this season quit on me, uh, just because I would either stop their recoveries, that's always the same, or like their cheese option is just no longer working. They will actually just like run off stage and die. Or that's if like the start button's disabled. Same with Rally. Like I've seen people quit on Rally just because it's like, well, I can't play the game the way I want to.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
like, I mean, and I can understand that's frustrating, but also in a lot of those situations, those people aren't even um, doing anything. Like they're not
like,
playing neutral well.
yeah, like they're not.
Like they're just not like they're not so optimized that there literally is nothing they can do. It's just kind of like
Yeah, they're
you're playing
just.
against someone who actually will exploit your bad habits.
Yeah, like there is just an actual skill gap, and you just can't deal with it. Uh,
Yeah.
but I want to move on to another topic about the attendance for San Antonio compared to other cities. Because we were talking
Okay.
about how people like don't feel like coming because they don't want to get their feelings hurt, or that people don't get what they want by not getting PR, or somebody new comes in and takes their elo away and they stop attending. San Antonio is actually really lucky because we have like seven tournaments that get about minimum 20 to 25 people,
Mm.
and Otaku gets about 60 to 70 people. And I looked at other cities, like I saw Shockwave today, and I saw like other tournaments in Dallas where they're getting like 30 to 40 people, but that's for every tournament. But that's
Yeah.
relatively small for their iconic tournament.
Yeah, because I mean, like Otaku quite literally, like reasonably expects to get more than 70 people, honestly. Like
Yeah,
we had like more than 90
yeah, we
at
had
the end
like
of last season.
92, I think. It was so crazy with the spring break.
Yeah,
Like,
and I was talking to a TO in Louisiana, and I told him how many people Otaku got, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
yeah, that's
I'm
a
so jealous
regional
of that.
for like some cities, some states. Even that's like a regional like bracket.
Yeah. I honestly I don't even know why, because we don't active honestly, in my opinion, we could advertise a lot better. Um,
Yes.
but I think once a tournament gets a certain size, like word of mouth just naturally makes it get a little bit bigger because it's like people will bring their friends and stuff.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
what caused this, in my opinion, right? You were a big part of it, just because you were very like we should not only advertise right using the Discord, but if we were hosting a con, or if somebody was going out of city or doing anything that just wasn't a tournament, like a local, just advertise the Discord and people would pop in. We had Carlbot help out with commands to show when people can go to which tournaments. We had flyers and all of these and all the venues that people could get into, and like we went from like getting 12 people or maybe like 30 people at Otaku to where we are at now.
yeah, that is a good point. Um, I I definitely think we could still be doing more. I think a weakness I have as far as like I guess kind of trying to drive new people is that I think if we started getting out of city to come to San Antonio more, that would also really help us almost paradoxically get more people who whatchamacallit, more people from here to go to stuff. Because if we have out of city, especially like big name out of city, it makes people who normally only go to one or two locals a week like come to additional locals so they have a chance to interact with those people.
Yeah,
Or at least some people. Not everyone's like that, but some people really do care about stuff like that. And then obviously having them there because it's additional people makes the pot bigger, and that also encourages people who are very money minded to also come.
yeah, that's actually a really good point, and that would help out not only our city but other cities too. Uh,
Yeah.
because when they hear like Austin's coming over or like Houston's having a carpool, uh, more people enter the bracket because they want wins and they want to. It wouldn't really boost their elos, but it would help them with their PR placement because then they can say they had an Odyssey win.
Yeah. I do think, unfortunately, across the board, Ultimate is kind of petering out a bit. And people can blame, either Steve or DLC2, but I do think a lot of scenes probably just don't have active plans for advertising and outreaching new people, um, because that requires actual work outside of just TOing.
Yeah, that's
Because I think when one of the issues that arises is when you are when you have like a set amount of people that already are coming to locals, it's very easy just to kind of appeal to those people only and not really think about how do I get new people in. And eventually those people, they just get older, they get jobs, or to be honest, they get tired of not winning. um
yeah,
like not even like saying they're going 0-2, but it's like they would like to actually like physically win a tournament or like top 3 or 4. And it's like the people who are making money off of brackets, if it's like a sizable pot, like they're just always gonna come. But eventually certain people where they're like, I am not making enough progress, or I am not making any progress into actually top 3 or 4ing, they will just eventually, they will pursue other opportunities, and that's not bad. I actually think it's good to know when to cut your losses, and then also, to be honest, Smash isn't a super productive use of your time as an adult. Um, but it's important to kind of remember, I guess, kind of keeping the dream alive, right? A lot of new people are fresh. They often, if they are interested in Smash, sometimes they have no experience playing competitive games. They just think Smash is really cool, and those are really good people to start getting to come to stuff because they don't really have expectations. And if you can integrate them into a community, they will just keep coming because, to be frank, also a lot of people who play competitive games, they're just kind of lonely nerds and they just kind of want an excuse to have friends. So,
yeah.
um,
That last part is actually extremely true. But as far as people are like plans of hosting more tournaments or expanding what they have, uh, outside of San Antonio, most regions kind of just stay complacent. Is like, well, we have 30 people, it's the same 30 people, and we're okay with that, right? We don't need to do more because advertising, marketing, and like talking to people and making sure that they're loved and that they have somebody that looks out for them. It's a lot of work, right? Uh, Especially because all of this is volunteer time. Nobody's getting paid, and the people who are getting paid already do a lot of work.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
It's just it's you have to invest in people to keep a scene alive, because something that always really irks me is when people kind of don't realize that like these people don't exist just for you to be better than them. If
yeah,
that makes sense. Like they are people where they are actively contributing to your improvement, actually, whether or not you think you're just naturally better than them. Like, I promise you, if you're not playing against old Tito who's going fucking banjo every week and throwing shit at you, even though you always beat him, I promise you that is actually helping you get better or stay on top of your game as a player, is dealing with
yeah.
the random shit you see in a local.
That's very true, and that's something that it's also why I invest my time into Bori, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Cause Bori, if you're listening to this, but it's he does not know how to recover, or he did not know how to recover previously. And just watching him play, most people would just quit because like, well, I'm not good. People are making fun of me. It's like I'm gonna do my be nice lessons and I'll talk to him. And Bori's a nice guy. I like talking to him. And now
Yeah, he has a
seeing
good
him
personality.
improve, like he took a game off G Meister, and on game 3, I was ready to be like, I'm ready to get kicked out of the venue for being so loud and hyped. Because I was like, his brain, like, it wasn't. like the best Smash gameplay, but it was like seeing the improvement made me so happy, and I'm glad that I got to witness that. Not only because I got to witness the game, but to witness his progress.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I feel like
Actually,
people.
funnily
Mhm.
enough, I had a conversation with someone um about their university Smash group, and they were like, "Well, they didn't recruit certain people because they weren't good," and I was like, "That's so ignorant."
Yeah, that's really
Like
dumb.
you actually, they're not gonna automatically be good. In fact, every one of us is actually fucking bad to begin with.
Yeah,
You have to invest in those people and help them become good so that you have a good team. Like you can't just like try to cherry pick like I don't know how to explain it. If someone's like actually good, they're not gonna really like
they're not gonna be on your fucking
play at a
esports team.
university
Yeah, exactly.
esports team. They're
Like,
going to be like making money.
yeah, they'd be like, you know what? I'll get an actual sponsor that's gonna pay for my shit, or like help me travel.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're going to be going to locals where they'll actually make money, or just
Yeah.
doing like stuff that is better for their growth as a player.
So that kind of stuff really bothers me, right?
Yeah.
Because in esports in general, esports teams, is I'll see people who are kind of good at the game, right? And they'll get sponsored or put on the university esports team, and their sponsor or team will just not care about them. Or they'll sponsor them because they're a good player and they're going to give them attention, but they're just mean and very evil people that they're not going to help you. Like, just because someone's good at the game, they're not going to benefit your team, because if it's a not a nice person, which most people are not very considerate in the first place, like it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's just not very productive. And I think that what goes on underneath the surface in SA a lot is, even though I've complained about the newer people being annoying, I do think actually SA has pretty good engagement with their new players. Like people will go up and talk to them
Yeah,
or be friendly or try to, provide advice and stuff. Um, and I think the people who have exited the scene who are newer, like a consistent theme in them is that they just kind of do not want to engage in the social part of it at all, and they don't understand that, to be frank, to be good at this game, you have to have fucking friends in some
yeah,
capacity. Like, very few of us are going to be like automatically good at this game, and some people will. Some people, they don't need to engage with the scene; they just need to
yeah,
play, and they will just naturally get better. But most of us, like, you need people who are to fucking practice with, and you need people who will encourage you and give you stupid advice that sometimes will work and other times won't, but it's the natural process of getting better. You have to be connected to people.
yeah, and like that's kind of the power of friendship, right? That I genuinely believe in, because I look at my friends like right now, and a lot of them have helped me not only play Sheik but get better at the game. Uh,
Hmm.
like Ray's has motivated me a lot, just because it's like if he can just say I'm tired of losing and start winning, like maybe I just need to like allow myself just to lose and stop complaining about dealing with characters I don't know how to play and just grind it. Uh, and I have friends who are going to. It's not that I get bad thoughts, but like a negative mentality. I know I have friends that are reliable and that'll tell me stop thinking like that, because that's not you, and that's just quite frankly dumb to think about, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, and when people don't have friends, and I've noticed this, that people who like made top eights or had PR wins, who don't have friends or good friends for that matter, uh, they've fallen off, and it's pretty apparent that their friends are either people they go to school with and they talk to enough to feel comfortable, like just talking and saying hi. Uh, but yeah, people just you need friends to get better, and you need friends to have more of a reason to go out to tournaments when you're feeling bad.
Yeah, that's actually a general theme in me actually supporting people. who are PR. I am. This might sound a little bit bitchy, but I generally don't. I don't give a lot of support to PR players in terms of like, giving them a lot of extra energy. Like I generally give the newer people a lot more attention and people who are not PR. Um, but the exception to that is when I see that they actually engage with the community, and they don't like there's some people, PR or otherwise, who just basically show up to basically talk about how good they are and have people listen.
Yeah. Or like,
Or just like basically they show up to talk about themselves or like talk about like characters, but they're never like invested in other people's
yes.
progress. Like they're never happy for anyone else but themselves.
Like literally, there are people. We have people in the scene who will look at other players as like they're pot fillers. Like they're here to provide me money and to entertain me by me beating them.
Yeah, and that's not very nice or good. And
Yeah.
so, like, if I see basically you engage with people in a healthy way, or you're very like willing to interact with other people who are not PR, because that is another thing I really hate when I just see like a pile of PR only interacting with each other. That drives me
That
bonkers.
was that's how it was in the first season. Like in the like until COVID hit, right?
Mhm.
Towards the end, people were separating more because internal conflicts and people being mean to each other. Uh, but that's just how it was. Like if you weren't good at the game, people would just be like, "Why are you even interacting? If you don't have anything to give to me in terms of like attention, validation, or practice, like I don't want to interact with you."
Mhm. That's how it be though. But I basically decide if I support people based off of that metric. The majority of people that I said earlier that I am interested in seeing them do well, they are people who, um, either I feel like are slowly learning that lesson,
Mm-hmm.
or alternatively have they know that and they are not like, I only want to interact with you if you're good, basically.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad we're having more people who are, how do I put it? It's not like they're not like just mean, but they're okay and willing to be open with other people.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
when you're a lonely nerd and you go to these gaming conventions and you go to these tournaments, you're very on edge because you've probably been bullied a lot. So when you meet someone new, it's like engaging a threat level. At least for me personally, it's how I was.
Mhm.
Uh, like you just think about, all right, is this person a threat to me? But more people have been very like willing to be vulnerable, which is good. You know, that's how you make friends. That's how you
Yeah.
get to experience new things.
Because I think people have this mentality, because honestly, it sounds cool, where it's like, I'm not here to make friends, I'm just here to win. And it's like, okay, well, you got to have the chops to do that, bud.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to be like that, you have to be very, very good. And to be frank,
Yeah.
like, the majority of us are not. Like, we just can't be good in that way. Like,
Yeah.
statistically, for people to be the best, other people have to be worse than them. So
And
it's like there can
that's
only be so many people who are like top cut.
yeah.
And, I think people have that attitude in situations where it's not beneficial to them, because it's like, okay, well, you're saying you're not here to make friends, but you're also like barely top eighting, at something that doesn't even
Yeah.
have like all PR.
Uh, that is actually I can think of a couple people who are like that in this scene, and they don't come as often, and that's probably because one, once they stop doing as good as they claim to have been doing, people made fun of them, or
Yeah.
like they're popping off because it's like, yes, this person didn't win. Like people will like look and feel good about you losing because you were either mean to them or you just have this like you're not worth my time attitude.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, that's how it'd be.
But I'm gonna end the podcast. It's been about an hour, so
Okay.
this is a good amount of time. Thank you very much, Bonray, for joining me. I really appreciate you spending time.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was glad to be here. Um, and I guess I'll see y'all again whenever I see you.
Yeah, this is the Animus podcast, and y'all have a good night.
Bye.